Okay, that's for my purposes when I go to sync it. Pat, if you could, you can do it if you want. It really doesn't matter.
Should I? Da, 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 da,
You're
And
not
then
allowed to edit that out when you post it on YouTube, though.
that'll be the
Oh
cold.
no!
That'll be the cold open.
We're back, and so are the Boston Celtics. This is Massholes with Mics. Not a football episode, not a baseball episode, but a basketball episode. Now, this is incredibly surprising, I know, to some because, well, we never do these ever. But the Celtics have been playing out of their minds lately. I'm Jordan Leandry, joined by Jeremy Guerin and Pat Mulligan. Brought him straight from Fenway Park to be on the show. So that's
Baseball talk. No baseball talk.
no baseball talk. That's the only baseball
That's
talk
true. We're
for
embargoed.
the day. This is basketball. This is basketball time. So the Boston Celtics are 20-7 in their last 27 games. They've been absolutely insane since RJ Barrett broke their hearts at the buzzer at Madison Square Garden. So yeah, being 20-7 in their last 27, they've improved from, I believe, the 9 seed, only like a game or two up on the 11 seed, to comfortably in the 5 seed, and have their eyes on perhaps the 2 seed, if not the 1 seed, if Miami kind of fades towards the end. So I will start with Pat. What are your thoughts on the Celtics since the last couple of months or so, especially since that RJ Barrett game winner?
Ime Udoka is a great coach. He implemented a defensive scheme that he knew would fit the players. It took them a while to learn. I mean, the training camps, particularly this year, but just in general at this stage in time, are a lot shorter than they used to be. And so it takes part of the regular season to get those schemes down. I mean, so being able to figure that out and get the personnel on the same page was huge. Now they have the best defense in the league.
Yeah, how about you, Jeremy?
I mean, I think we've talked about it a lot in our group chats, but this team is starting to make me buy in on basketball again. Period. Like, I went a couple of years where I was very disillusioned and I didn't really want to watch this team. Call it definitely last year. Last year they really stopped trying down the stretch, but even that Kyrie year, it was not. It was they weren't fun to watch. They were an unlikable bunch. They reminded me a lot of the 2017 Red Sox. So there's your second and final baseball reference. Just a very unlikable team in my opinion. But guess what? They're here. They're playing good defense, and I think a lot of the players have said that it starts on the defensive end. And as Pat said, the coach is really starting to get through to them. Not even starting. He has gotten through to them all year. It was just growing pains to begin. It's a little bit weird, I guess. I don't know why it took them so long to get going, but you see them clicking now, both ends of the court. It's a joy to watch. It really is, and it makes me want to tune into basketball night in and night out, which I couldn't say last year and I couldn't say the year before either.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeremy. I hadn't been watching the Celtics as closely as I had always, like, the first Kyrie year, and then obviously during Isaiah's run in Boston. I hadn't watched it that closely. And I'm out in Arizona and I'm watching it every single night, especially since it's more favorable for me. It's 5 o'clock PM when they start. But yeah, I think part of the issue early on was Brad Stevens inherited, I always call it a soiled diaper in a roster, because there were so many guys on the team, particularly Kemba, who was just eroding physically, and they had to get rid of that contract. And I thought a lot of people really freaked out when they traded him and brought back Al Horford. I don't really know why. I don't really think there was a downside to that. They didn't, I mean, there was no real use for Kemba anymore. Tatum and Brown were going to take over as primary ball handlers and scoring options. You didn't need someone like Kemba who needs to have the ball to be effective. And as far as buying in down this, apparently, or according to the last few weeks, especially, they've really bought it. I think they're 17-2 in the last 19 games Marcus Smart has played. It took a while, but they have the guys that they want in their rotation. Derek White trade, as much as he's kind of struggled shooting the ball, he's been a perfect fit defensively. He can switch on everybody. Even Daniel Tice to an extent, although he has the weakest wrists of all human beings on the planet. I really like the way this team is shaping up, and I think I'll save the hot take for the end. But I really like the way they've been playing lately. Robert Williams and Al Horford surprisingly work together. Al basically is. A lot of people say Marcus Smart and Robert Williams are like the defensive players of the year if you had to give one to a Celtic. I think it's Al Horford. I think he is kind of instrumental in what they do there, and it's always a big that wins it, a big or a wing. So it wouldn't be Smart. But Al kind of makes Robert Williams as good of a defender as he is. I know I kind of went off on a long tangent there, but I wanted to give some Al Horford love. I almost wore his jersey, but then I realized I couldn't fit in it anymore.
Ooh,
Tragic. That's the end of college life.
It is.
Freshman 15 every year starts to add up.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the big thing, especially that's been instrumental in this run outside of the defense, has been how great Jayson Tatum has been, especially since that Knicks game, but especially since turning 24. I mean, the last 4 games, he's averaging over 40 points a night. Jeremy, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on how Tatum's played lately? And, where would you put him in terms of MVP race specifically right now? Because that's the hot topic right now.
So I sent you guys this text earlier. Tatum is plus 30,000 right now on DraftKings to win the MVP. He's tied with guys like LeBron, like Kevin Durant, and people ahead of him include DeMar, Ja, Jokic, Embiid. Steph Curry is ahead of him as well, which I found to be completely laughable. Doncic, I don't understand. And first of all, in terms of takeaways from Tatum, this is who Celtics fans wanted him to be. Like, he is making every correct play. It looks like he's trying to shoot golf balls into the ocean right now with some of the shots that he's making. It's insane. I mean, what was the shot? He was going down, I want to say it was the right side of the court yesterday against the Hornets, and he steps over into a fadeaway 3 from the corner, and it's just butter. And I'm like, I don't know how he made it. It makes no sense. And he pulls up on another guy. And I don't think do you guys think it's hyperbolic for me to say that the way that he right now is going up the court, sizes up a defender and goes, oh, you're smaller than me, and then just pulls up and rips it and hits it? That's Durant-like. That's what it is.
Yeah. My comparison is like prime T-Mac. The way he just is that size, he just picks a defender that's smaller than him and shoots over him, or is bigger and either blows by or just crosses him up and steps back. It's insane the way he just creates separation.
And
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the T-Mac comparison I think is a little bit more valid than Durant. Obviously, Durant being the better shooter of the two. I think Tatum is a healthy mix of both because he has the shooting that Durant has, and he can finish better than Durant. He finishes almost like T-Mac. How often? I was trying to think about it because I heard this today. How many times have you seen Kevin Durant in the last couple of years go up and finish through contact? He doesn't do it all that often now that I think about it. He kind of flips it up there. He's got, a finger roller, a floater, or a transition dunk, but he doesn't often take on a big guy or take on 2 defenders, get hit, and still be able to put the ball in the cup. Tatum does that. And that's my favorite part is I feel like in previous years, he did a lot of settling, especially when things weren't going well. He tried to play hero ball. He tried for the long jump shot, and he can still hit the long jump shot now, but he is going to the basket religiously on a night-to-night basis. And when was the last time as Celtics fans we could say, going into a matchup, oh, we got the best guy on the court, and you're facing guys the caliber of LeBron, Durant, Curry. This guy, top 5 in the league this year for sure, when all is said and done. I know I was arguing with one of my coworkers about this the other day. He says that if you took just the year 2022, he's top 5. If you take the entire year, he's not. But I think he is. And if he keeps playing like this, he should be an MVP favorite next year.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of CLNS media post games with you guys, his old professor John Zanis.
Loves it.
Yeah, I unfortunately transferred. I didn't get to experience his class, but their post game show is really good. I think Bobby Manning said it last night. A lot of people, basically exactly what Jeremy said, the Durant comparisons, but the fact that Tatum can kind of go downhill, run through somebody and dunk on you. And he's doing that a lot lately. Even at the beginning of this run, he showed kind of almost a reluctance to actually, finish at the rim instead of just, going up and just either being content with a foul or laying it in. He's going through guys and dunking it on people. I think the comparison that I would use, honestly, is kind of like what people wanted Vince Carter to be, that he just kind of didn't want to go, that level that he didn't want to go to, where he would just a lot of FU threes and just being able to finish over anybody. Vince Carter did it a little bit when he was with the Nets, but I thought before and after he was almost content being either I'm going to finish over you at the rim or I'm just going to shoot threes all night. Tatum's doing both, and I think that's kind of the level Vince Carter didn't get to, and I think Tatum is becoming that player. As far as MVP race, I would put him in the top 5. I'm looking at.
Yeah, who do you got for your top 5? Both of you, because I'm interested in this. I want to see what you guys go with.
I think Jokic has already settled this. I think he's won the MVP already. He won it weeks ago, And the fact that he's putting up 40, 18, and 10 on a nightly basis without Murray and Porter, keeping the Nuggets, I believe, in the 4 or 5 seed in the West right now. Six
right
seed
now.
in the West. But he's like a win. They're like a win or two away from where Philly is, and everyone's saying Embiid should win MVP.
He used to be a different team.
Yeah. He's carrying them, and he's kind of helping. It's very Westbrook-esque that year between Durant and getting Paul George and Melo, or was that between those two, where he just averaged a triple-double. Only Jokic probably won't get there with the assists. But I think Jokic is far and away already won the MVP this season. I think I would still put Embiid over Tatum because of just the level he carried the Sixers to, and I think the distraction of Ben Simmons off the court should play into it a little bit. Obviously, getting Harden changed things a little bit. I would probably put Giannis over him still. And then Tatum, I'd probably put fourth in the MVP race right now. I think there's a lot of recency bias that goes into it, but I think that's just the nature of the award. Tatum has been unbelievable in 2022. The Celtics have anchored he's anchored this huge Celtics kind of resurrection over the course of the last 2 months. I think he's a top 5 MVP candidate, and I think the way he's playing right now, there are not many people in the NBA I would take over him.
Yeah, I agree. I have a tendency to think of MVP in sort of tiers of players, like categories. So that top tier for me is Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis pulling up the rear of that top category. Then the second tier for me is sort of that Ja Morant, DeMar DeRozan, Jayson Tatum. Tatum is quickly ascending his way through that tier and might be at the top. I just don't think he's quite at that elite level, simply due to the way the season started for this season.
It definitely didn't start well for him.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think Embiid's probably one. I think they gave Jokic the award last year, obviously, and Embiid didn't get it. So I think that they may be like, okay, let's get Joel his due type of thing.
I'm with you. I think Jokic is probably my MVP in my brain right now, but Embiid's not out of it. And the fact that Jokic just won it last year and Giannis had won it previously sort of gives Embiid like the nod in my head of who they're going to give it to.
And he's never healthy. This is probably the best chance he'll ever have to win the award.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he hasn't missed many games this year. I think in terms of rounding out that top 3 for me, I honestly would put Jokic fourth. Only because you're a 6 seed. I think all these other guys, depending on where they finish, deserve to be ahead of you because they've been anchoring their teams, and it's Embiid, Ja, and Tatum. That's just me.
Interesting. You've Ja second.
Yeah, I love Ja. He's awesome.
I mean, honestly, if you're going to look at, I think there's a chance that, the bias of where people had Memphis in the beginning of the season versus where they are now, I could see Ja finishing in the top 3. And then I think their coach is probably going to win Coach of the Year. I don't even know his name. That's probably why he's
Taylor
Coach of the. Yeah, exactly. He's probably a shoo-in for Coach of the Year, given where Memphis is. I think they're second right now because the Warriors have kind of fallen apart.
Also, side
crazy.
note, it's amazing how much Draymond Green apparently affects this Warriors team because they were world beaters, and then he went down, and they have really sucked.
Yeah, it's crazy. I
always
thought
on offense and their best defender on defense.
Yeah, I always thought highly of Draymond as a defensive player, but I did not realize how important he is. That, like, honestly, if we're basing the MVP strictly on value to the team, and I know it's the best player award as it should be, but if we're talking about value to a team, Draymond, with the way they've played in his absence, is probably going to get some votes himself because they've been putrid without him. Thankfully, for their sake, they're getting him back soon, just in time to face the Celtics. So that's great.
Good for my narrative that he's a top 3 playmaker in the league, which feels hyperbolic, but it's my narrative and I'm sticking to it.
Nice.
Well, yeah, I think Tatum, I'm looking just since that Knicks game, he's averaging 28, 8, and 5 on 47% shooting, 34.7 from 3, and 87% from the line. Since turning 24, 42 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists on 55.8, 46.3, 86.8 splits. He's been unbelievable since then. And I think since that Knicks game, and especially since turning 24, I think he's going to win over a lot of people who want to play on emotion and the recency bias. And I think it's fair, especially in the NBA, with the way that the playoff structure, especially this year is, with so many teams in that mix. If the Celtics finishes the 2 seed, I could see Tatum finishing as high as 3rd in the MVP voting. I'd probably put him at 4th or 5th right now.
If he finishes with a top 3 seed in the East, which has been the better conference this year, he deserves top 5 at least. I think that you could bump him all the way up to 3.
Unless for some godforsaken reason he's not a reason they finish in the
Yeah.
top 2, like he completely falls off a cliff, which knock on wood, that won't happen.
And if he's the 1 seed, he's the MVP.
Yeah,
He
if they
should be.
somehow
If he's
leapfrog
making 1
Miami,
seed and he stays on this kind of tear where he's averaging like 34, 35 the rest of the year, he's the MVP.
yeah, if he averages somewhere in the ballpark of 35 to 40 points a game and the Celtics leapfrog Miami, I think it would be unfair to not rely heavily on recency bias. Be like, this dude just carried them to the 1 seed from the almost out of the play-in like the wrong direction. You know, that's got to be taken into account to some extent.
Both teams have 15 games remaining, and the Celtics are 4 games back of the Heat right now. I think a 2 seed's definitely attainable because there's only 2 games separating that. I think it's going to be hard to catch the Heat.
It will be
for the 1 seed, but it could be very interesting.
On March 30th, the Celtics and Heat.
That could be
game.
fun. That could be
That could be
real.
a
And
huge
it's in
game.
Boston.
I could be
that
at
could
that
be real
game.
fun.
Which is
Yeah, it's in
exciting.
Boston.
Okay, Pat, I see it. All right.
Maybe we'll have to convene afterwards.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like
maybe. So I mean, we've talked a little bit about Tatum and where he'd rank in the MVP voting, but I think if we're talking moving forward, so we'll say the next 5 or so years, and you redraft the NBA, where would you put Tatum in terms of, I guess you'd say, building your franchise? So I guess that would probably rule out LeBron because you're not going to get him for 5 more years, I don't think. So where would you put Tatum in terms? I mean, I probably would take Tatum next 5 years over LeBron anyway. Hot take, but
I would.
Where would you put Jayson Tatum in terms of you're drafting a franchise? What number would you take him at? And I will start this one with Pat.
I instinctively want to say 3. It could be
Behind
1,
who?
but my gut says 3 behind Ja and Luka. Tatum's a better defender than both of them, just plain and simple. But I just feel like what those guys have offensively, particularly in terms of playmaking, where Tatum's improved plenty, but they just elevate a team on the offensive side a little bit more for me.
I'll go next here. I'm taking Tatum first. I honestly, and there's no hesitation there. I was contemplating Luka and Ja as well. I think Luka, I know he's trimmed down a little bit, still kind of in that little phase of him where I'm like, I don't really know how he'll age in terms of just his body, like if he starts breaking down sooner. Ja, he's a very explosive player. I think he's very Westbrook-esque, and I know that can win you a lot of regular season games, but I think that there's a potential, like, I don't want to wish it out there because I obviously wouldn't do that. Ja's a fantastic player, but I see potentially some serious knee issues in the near future because that dude is so explosive, almost to a fault. It's like right now it's working beautifully, but I question how that will age, especially in the next 5 years. Tatum, the way he's shooting, the way he's defending, the way he's kind of blossomed a bit as a playmaker. I mean, since Smart's the primary, facilitator, Tatum averaging 5 assists is pretty damn good. And then obviously his ability to finish at the rim as well. He's paced himself a lot better, especially in the course of the last, 2 months or so. I'd put Tatum first. I would build my franchise around him above everybody else. The only one that I think is
I
close is
mentioned a name that I think we both overlooked and were dunces for doing so.
Hang on. I still have to go.
Oh, Jeremy, do you think you're going to say this name?
Yeah, probably. So I have him either 2 or 3, and the 2 guys that I might be able to put ahead of him, Pat did not name. I'm not putting a guard ahead of Tatum. I think if you want to take everything into account, and what I wrote on our text is age, talent, and health. Health is the thing that makes it very controversial with my other one. But I think I am a size snob in the NBA. You get a big wing, like the length that he's really he was a good defender last year, and I would say he's an elite defender this year. If he's trying on both ends of the floor, he can impact a game by his defense in the same way that Luka can impact it with his assist making. I truly believe that, especially in Udoka's system. Now, the 2 guys that I would put ahead of him, neither of which are guards, both of them are wings, if you want to call it that, and one does have a health problem. So I think that right now, because he's still only 33, I'm going to take Durant ahead of him because Durant has been there and done that, and what he did against the Bucks last year in the playoffs was insane. Like, he should have won that series. They
off
just
an Achilles tear.
Exactly. Like, the man is ridiculous. And if Tatum is, I'd say 80 to 90% of Durant, whew, Celtic got a good one for another
Yeah,
decade if
top
they can lock him
25
down.
player ever.
Exactly. Like that's honestly not. It's not hyperbole to say that now after watching him for this entire calendar year. And then the guy that I'm kind of waffling in between is Giannis. Do I want to put Giannis ahead of Tatum or not? Giannis has obviously been there too. He's won, was it back-to-back MVPs or was it back-to-back depoys? I can't remember now.
I think it's an MVP and 2 depoys. Plus, he obviously has the ring as well.
Plus the Finals MVP, plus the Finals win. Exactly. So I think right now, because Giannis is, let me Google that real quick, but I'm pretty sure he's 27.
It sounds right.
I'm probably going to take him ahead of Tatum too. And outside of that, I mean, I think him and Giannis are lockstep. Like they're right there, and he is 27.
I have another name, Jeremy.
Who in the
Another
world are you going to say?
27-year-old who we horrendously have been overlooking.
Hang on.
Is it Draymond Green?
Can
No,
you give me the conference? And I want to see it. Sorry?
Western.
Oh, really? 27-year-old guy in the West?
Towns? Very good.
Towns?
No.
Cat's a good one though too, but I probably wouldn't take him.
No, I wouldn't either.
Over Tatum.
Who?
I would probably definitely take this guy over Tatum for the next 5 years.
Let's see.
Nikola Jokic, who's 20.
Jordan said that while you were trying to say something as well.
I would put Jokic forward.
I'm not. No, I'm not touching him.
He's another guy that I'm like, I just don't know. I think with the way Tatum's ascending, and I think Jokic now he's probably the top 2 or 3 player in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
I don't think he can get to another level higher than he is currently.
Do you think Tatum be the best player in the league?
I think so.
Okay.
I think he could be.
Who? Tatum or Jokic?
If Jokic is 2 and you're taking Tatum, that means you think Tatum could be the best player in the league.
I think Tatum could be the best player in the NBA within the next 2 years.
I agree. Especially you watch LeBron and the Lakers right now. First of all, that team sucks. So I don't know how LeBron even has MVP odds at this point. But second of all, and more importantly, he's starting to get there. He's starting to hit his expiration date. And it's not necessarily completely his fault. He's been given crappy pieces by himself, mind you, around him. But his play has started to slip a little bit. He's got the injury now, that right knee that's been bothering him. And when it breaks down, it could be a very disastrous fall off the cliff for him. We don't know. But
I think...
Yeah, sorry, Jordan, go.
I think what makes me, like, homerism aside, why I'd pick Tatum first over everybody else in the NBA moving forward the next 5 years is I'm watching how he's playing against these guys that are in that conversation, the Durants, the Jokic's, the LeBrons. That dude reaches another level when he faces them. I was watching Adam Kaufman's podcast with Sean Grande last week, right before, like a day or two before the Nets game. And Adam Kaufman said that we've been waiting for a couple of years for Tatum to have that I'm no longer the little brother game. And he drops 54 on Kevin Durant, the biggest game of the season, the Celtics win. Games like that. And I think if he struggled in that game or the Celtics lost and he, even if he had like 40 or whatever, I think I'd still probably be a little hesitant to take him first overall if we're redrafting the league and building around one player. But watching him drop 54 on Durant and then against the Hornets, I know they're obviously not a great team. They're a fun team when they're playing well, but that's prime, like, letdown territory. Like, you just had a huge emotional victory. Tatum goes out and drops 44. And I think in a lot of ways carried the Celtics to a win in that game too, because it got ugly at a couple of points. It's just games like that I'm like, Tatum can really be that dude. And the intrigue of where he can go as a playmaker as well, facilitating, even though Smart's going to be the guy that's the primary assist guy on the roster, that alone is enough intrigue for me to want to take him first overall over everybody else.
No, I agree. I mean, I think he's so close. And it's amazing because we had spent a couple of years now, I'd say, ever since that we got to college even, me and Jordan, wondering, could he be that guy? Could he take that step? And he is now. He showed sparks of it last year. And then he really took off this year, and it is fun, I will say. It is
very, very fun to watch. So I think the last thing that we need to talk about is obviously the Celtics playoff aspirations. It's amazing what one little run can do, because I remember tweeting almost every single game they played, sell at the deadline, because they were horrible into mid-December, into early January. They were really, really bad. And the tip of the iceberg for me was that Christmas Day game against the Bucks, where they were up, like, it was like a tale of two halves. And basically what the Celtics have gotten rid of in the second half of the season is huge lead, blew it against the Bucks. And we're talking, if they don't blow those games in the first half of the season, they're probably the 1 seed in the East. They blew so many double-digit leads in the first half, to the point where I was full-blown sell at the deadline, and even talking about, finding a trade partner for someone like Jaylen Brown, because you went from, we have 2 stars, we need to find that third one to build around them, to, are we the team that is actually trading one of these stars to another team that's looking for that third guy? But as far as the playoffs now, they're the 5 seed. They're very close to the 4 seed. I think they're a half game behind Chicago. I think they're 2 back of the 2nd seed, and obviously 4 back of the 1 seed. What do we think the ceiling is for this for the Celtics in this postseason? I'll start with Jeremy.
Okay, so first of all, you have to make it to the second round. I think anything worse than that is a failure. I think if you lose in 5 games to any of these opponents, it's a failure. I believe in this Celtics team that much. You should be going 6-7 games with whoever you lose to, and the team that you lose to should be the eventual champion. That's just me. I think that any of these Eastern Conference teams could even take the Suns if they needed to, or you lose to the Suns in the finals, but that's another thing. The only teams that I right now would take that over the Celtics are the Bucks and the Nets. Bucks for their playoff pedigree and the fact that they've been there, done that last year. The Nets for the fact that I think when Simmons gets back, and he will, I think they've been hiding him so that way he doesn't have to play Philly tonight, actually, at the time of recording this. And you have him, Kyrie, playing half the games, still funny, and Durant. I mean, playoff Durant is another beast, and they are going to be getting all the calls, too. We have to remember that as well. Playoff whistles will usually go to the stars.
That's true.
So right now I would take the Bucks, and I would take the Nets over the Celtics in a 7-game series. I think both of them would be 6-7-game thrillers. And anyone else that you lose to, what are you doing? Like, it's a failure. That's what because it was so much promise. And I know they started out the season really well, but they're 0-14 against the top 3 seeds in both conferences. If you lost to the Bulls in a playoff series, that's not good.
That's
not
failure.
good at all. You have to beat the Bulls. You have to beat the Cavs, the Hawks, the Heat even. Is there anyone else I'm forgetting that's pretty obvious? Like, I think you could take all of these teams.
I don't know if you said the Cavs, right?
Yeah. And
I think you should beat Philly.
Sixers at all, really?
I think you should beat Philly.
So,
I think they match up really well against Philly.
That's the swing vote, and I'm not sure about that because I think that you could have easily taken them without Harden. With Harden, it gets infinitely harder. Yeah, exactly.
It hardens. The odds harden.
I don't know. I don't know who'd win that series. I'm going to lean on the Celtics defense and the fact that they've been able to frustrate and beat in previous matchups. But with Harden and Maxey, who's just absolutely insane, like that's
40 free throws a game
really,
right there.
That's a really tall order, and I think it comes down to how often Rob Williams can stay out of foul trouble, as Jordan was just alluding to.
Yeah, I think you should be able to beat Philly. I think this team should be able to beat Philly. Now, it's one of those where if they lost in 6 games, I'm going to tip my hat. It's their time. I mean, Embiid's never going to have a season where he's this healthy and dominant, and then obviously Harden is there with him. That's an elite duo that you really haven't been able to game plan for. I know obviously you will be able to in a 7-game series, but if you lost that series in 6, it wouldn't be a shame, but I think they should beat them, and I'd be disappointed if they didn't. Pat, what do you think the ceiling is for this team?
I agree with everything you boys have said about, the teams they should beat and the teams that if they lose to, I wouldn't be disappointed. The Nets, Bucks, and even the Sixers. I'd be like, all right, yeah, that team they've been there before. They've done it. They've got the talent. I'm not upset. The only team I think they really can't beat is the Suns. I think the Suns have
I think they could.
The most efficient fourth quarter offense of all time. They have, in my opinion, the greatest point guard of all time. Probably second behind Magic.
Yeah.
And an elite ball shot creator in Devin Booker, an elite wing defender in Mikal Bridges.
I knew that was coming.
Well, he's going to shut down Jaylen or Jayson. So
yeah, but I think what I would lean on there is I think that there are enough subpar defenders, aka Booker and Paul, that you can get enough and you can shut down their opponent.
The problem is the Celtics' best lineup. They can hide their subpar defenders on Smart and White.
That's a good point. But
The
hey,
Celtics
as smart as balling like he
their
has
best,
been,
like their death lineup to invoke the old Warriors days.
who covers Tatum?
I think that'd be
Probably,
Bridges.
Bridges.
So who covers Brown? I'm unclear
Crowder?
on who. But
Yeah.
again, I like that those odds.
I like that.
I love
like
Jay,
that
but
matchup,
man,
but I think Jay does enough to kind of quiet Brown a little bit, especially since Jalen plays so recklessly sometimes, and in the finals he's going to be out of his mind trying to
Really,
go out
the
there
only
and prove
guy
that
who
he's
really
that
scares
dude
me
as
that
well.
much from the Western Conference is Chris Paul. Chris Paul.
I really love the idea of a final series between these two, though. Imagine
Me too, because I'll be here for it.
Bob and Ayton bumping down low in the post. Like
Ayton's baby food to me. I know Rob's not built like Mitchell Robinson, but watching Ayton get tossed around by Mitchell Robinson the other night, I know he came back and played really well against the Bucks and with Giannis covering him, but the Ayton does that a lot from time to time. I honestly think the Celtics would own the front court advantage. And I think that series, if they did make the finals against the Suns, I think that series would come down to whether or not you can get 40% 3-point shooting from Al Horford, because he's going to get open a lot. Because they're going to crash on Tatum, they're going to crash on Brown. Someone's going to be open in the corner. I mean, I guess if you can get 40% from one of Smart and Horford, and the other one shoots like 35-ish%, 35 to 37%, I like your chances a lot. I really do.
I agree with Pat though when he said that the only team and specifically player that he's scared of in the West is probably Chris Paul. The Warriors have been so streaky all year. I love your chances against the Grizzlies. I love your chances against Dallas. I love your chances against Denver. I think all of those teams, they're so heavily leaning on one player, and you have waves of defenders that you can throw at those teams. Maybe not the Warriors. The Warriors obviously are different, but they've been so Jekyll and Hyde all year. I know we touched on it earlier, but I don't know what to expect from them. I don't think that they're not built for deep playoff run just because they've been so streaky. They're going to lose 4 games at some point. But, I mean, the Suns have been wire to wire the best team in the league, and Pat's right. I mean, Chris Paul got a taste of the finals last year, and he wants that ring. He's going to be geared up and going for it.
It's the last thing he needs, and then he can ride off into the sunset after making $40 million next year.
And he might be fresh because he's coming off of that thumb surgery.
Yep. I honestly, if there was a time to get hurt, there's never a good time to get hurt. But Chris Paul found the right time to get hurt. Like
the Suns clinched a playoff berth last night. I posted about it. They clinched a freaking playoff berth with like 17 games to go in the regular season. They've
insane. Been nuts. I was so wrong on them. I thought they were going, like, last year was their year, the COVID year. They all got hot at the right time. They were a very emotional team. One of the few teams in the postseason that started the postseason with, I think, at least 50% capacity for fans. They just kind of rode that wave. I thought they were going to crash and burn this year, not necessarily miss the playoffs, but be like a 6 seed. Oh my Lord, was I wrong? They are filthy. And Cam Johnson's like basically baby Booker off the bench. Like, he's an absolute flamethrower. That dude went. I think if the Celtics and Suns, by the way, my ceiling is I can see this team winning the finals. That's my ceiling for them. Realistically speaking, get out of the second round. I think if they lost in the conference finals, I would think that would be a successful season, especially with where they started. But I think if they faced the Suns, the MVP of that series would be Cam Johnson. He'd average like 25 off the bench.
No, I could totally see that. I mean, who are the Celtics going to trot out off the bench to guard him?
Derek White can't do it.
White.
They don't have anyone.
Neesmith? Grant, I guess.
No. You'd have to commit one of the Jays on them and bring in Grant for additional height, which I find funny. So after years of being small ball and tiny centers like Horford, the Celtics had Jayson Tatum as the 2. A couple of nights ago, they rolled with the triple big after Neesmith got hurt.
They were great.
Grant, Horford,
great.
Rob, Tatum, and I want to say it was Smart, and they were really good.
Smart.
They beat who was it? Was it the
Memphis.
Grizzlies?
Yeah, it was Memphis.
I mean,
they might have to trot that out in a series against Brooklyn. They might actually have to trot that out for real minutes.
Yeah, Drummond, Aldridge, Griffin, Durant.
Ime revolutionizing how
the one. That'd be nasty.
Ime's revolutionizing how other teams play defense, because I was watching the Suns against the Bucks and they had a double big lineup featuring JaVale McGee and Bismack Biyombo. I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm like, big business and JaVale McGee. Like what on earth? By the way, JaVale McGee's carved out a really nice career, like low key.
Oh, yeah, he really
got 2 rings already. He might have 3 after this year.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that's everything.
Yeah,
I think
we covered it pretty well.
Yeah. All right. Any last thoughts from anybody?
I
Other
can't
than
wait to do
Banner
one.
18's coming.
I can't wait to do one of these again when we're getting ready for the playoffs and Celtics are sitting in the 2 seed.
I can't wait to do a one after that where we're crying because they somehow lost to like Brooklyn in the first round.
Yeah. Brooklyn's going to be like the 7th seed.
Brooklyn's going to sneak
We're
into
screwed.
Okay, really
That'd be
quickly,
so frustrating.
My last comment is everyone's talking about how great the Nets are going to be as a 7 seed. If they're in that spot, or they're in the 8 seed, I think, to make the playoffs, to have a play-in game, they're hosting that game. Kyrie can't play that game.
Well, through the 8, they're not hosting it because they play the 7.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
And then if they lose, then they face the winner of the 9 and 10.
Who would they be hosting? Let me just check real quick. If the season
like
ended
the
today.
Wizards.
I don't think it's the Wizards. I think it's
Charlotte. Might be Charlotte.
Eastern Conference, the 8 seed. Oh, the Brooklyn Nets are the 8 seed right now.
Yeah.
So they'd be facing. They'd be in Toronto. So Kyrie can't play.
Kyrie can't play there
either.
So really, at this point, you're kind of either hoping, if you're Brooklyn, that you completely crash and burn and fall to the 9 seed where you'd be hosting, or no, you'd still be hosting.
Mm-hmm.
You fall to the 10 seed and be going to Atlanta. I could see them winning that. Or you get on your horse. I don't know. There's no shot they make it out of the play-in round right now, or make it out of play-in territory. They're 4.5 back at Cleveland for 6.
So I get final word on this. I saw, I think it was Zach Harper tweeted out, "Yo, Kyrie's home road splits are insane this year," or something like that, which I thought was hilarious. That's all I had to add.
And who knows? I mean, the laws and rules keep changing, so Kyrie might be allowed to play in New York by the time.
He might. No shot.
That'd be such a shame.
Toronto,
I'd be so
There's no
upset.
chance that's going to change. If they go to Toronto, there's no chance.
No,
No.
They just got back to full attendance.
Yeah, there's no shot Kyrie will be able to play in Toronto. I also think, sorry, this is the last. I swear this is the last thing I have to say. I'm not entirely convinced that Ben Simmons, what do we have to base it on that Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie are even going to work? They haven't played together yet.
I mean, he's not going to take shots away from the two of them, which I think is what they want.
He won't. But as far as floor spacing is concerned, are they going to roll him out with a 5? And they could, I guess.
I mean, you can roll him out at the 4 with Aldridge.
That's true, and he would make up for the fact that LaMarcus Aldridge is slower than molasses at this point.
Yeah,
he got blown by Grant Williams. Dude, retire, old man.
But I think Ben Simmons is the best thing they could add to that. I think my hot take for the afternoon is that Ben Simmons has the potential to be the best version of Draymond Green we've ever seen.
That's a great take.
We haven't seen it yet, and I'll admit that, but I think the potential is there.
For a few years, he was the guy that I wanted the Celtics to have as their center, because I think him is the. I mean, but they could play small.
Be the fastest, most versatile offense and defense.
Exactly, and I think as far as switchability goes, could you imagine? I mean, you're talking about not being able to shoot.
Replace
Rob
Ben
and
Simmons.
Ben Simmons as the front court.
Replace Amir Johnson with Ben Simmons on that Celtics team and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably would have won a couple more games against the Cavs and then still lost every game by 50 after. But
yeah, it's fine. All right.
All right, yeah. Let's. So that'll do it for this edition of Massholes, Mike. It was good to be back. It's been forever. It's been 2 months.
We got Pat on the show.
It's been a minute. So
Pat has yet to be on a YouTube version. So
yeah.
It's the first time people will
get to see. I had to put on the suit if I knew I was going to be on camera.
Y'all get to see that Pat is 5'8", 142 pounds, and is a point guard. Cheers. Hopefully that sneaks into the box. Cheers.
I don't know if it will. We'll see.
It's a swig of wine. We love it. We'll probably do another one of these right around the time the playoffs start. Hopefully the Celtics are the 2 seed by then.
Maybe some baseball stuff too.
Maybe, perhaps. I mean, maybe Carlos Perez a Red Sox. Last.
As it is now ratified, I'm allowed to say things like Rafael Devers and say
just says names.
All right, that'll do it for this edition of Massholes with Mikes. For Pat and Jeremy, I am Jordan Leandry, and have a great rest of your day, guys.
Peace.
Fantastic.